All right, so today we're working on the cabinet for the refrigerator. So this will house the refrigerator, as well as on top will be the technology cabinet. So we've kind of made the carcass, and we didn't show that in videos or anything because it's the same way we did every other structure in here. So anyway, we've built out this kind of space, and we did bring the fridge in here and test it to make sure that it fits and that there's room on the sides and things like that, so it fits in there. We are going to bolt it through the floor. So the particular one that we have has bolts that go in the front and they screw into the body of the refrigerator. So we're going to use those to screw in the refrigerator, mount it securely to the ground, and then on top we're going to build a structure that goes across, or a piece of wood that goes across, that'll kind of pin it to the top. So then on top of that we're going to have a shelf. So that's what this line is. So we've already run the 120 volts for the refrigerator, and then that continues up here and provides these two, because this cabinet will have all of our solar controls, as well as battery controls, actuator controls for the solar on the roof, and all of our cell equipment, so our routers and all of our Wi-Fi stuff, all that will be housed in here, and some of that needs 120. We'll also have 12 volts in here, which is being fed by this guy here. So we'll have 12 volts and 120 up here to be able to plug in all the different types of devices. The one thing to mention too about this one particular circuit, the one that's on the refrigerator, is it will actually be, it will have a backup. And so we will have a 12 volt inverter that will power all of the plugs that are off of this one. And so if our main battery dies, what it'll do is it'll have an automatic transfer switch, which will transfer and start getting 12 volts from the house batteries to keep, or I'm sorry, from the coach batteries to keep the refrigerator going. There'll be all kinds of alarms and things like that that go off, but it will transfer power so that, you know, if in case something does happen and our BMS shuts down the main battery, it will switch off and it will then start pulling power from the 12 volt starter batteries. So these circuits will be on that. So we'll still have internet and we'll still have refrigerator, but all the rest of the 120 in the coach is dependent on that particular, on the Victron inverter and the 48 volt battery. So anyway, that's the backup on that one. So right now we're going to start building this shelf here. And so one thing to notice is in the corner here, you'll notice there's a cutout there with kind of a wine bottle shaped looking thing. That's not a wine holder. So what that is we're going to put in 320 millimeter fans that can pull quite a bit of air to suck the hot air out of the compressor compartment of the refrigerator, and just of this compartment in general. So it'll suck the hot air out and it'll push it out. There's a vent that goes outside in under this cabinet here. And so what we're building on top, and one thing to consider also, is up here we're going to have fans that take the air from all of our accessories up here, all of our technology stuff, and they're going to push air down the back of the refrigerator. So there's about a 1 to 2 inch gap in the back of the refrigerator, and so we're going to have fans that cause a vacuum in here to pull the air down, and then those fans will pull it out from there, and then there'll be 2 more fans that exhaust it outside. And so of course those are all be variable speed based on how hot it is. And so we've got to, before we install this shelf, we've got to put in our, make sure we have the fans all kind of configured the way we want them, and make sure this all works. And then we're going to have a large hole on this side here for wires to be able to come up into the technology cabinet. So we've got a few wires that go down there that need to come, they'll come up over here and then make their way into the technology cabinet. So that's the plan for today. We'll see how it goes. All right, so we've cut our shelf and we've got 3 big holes in it back here for 3 fairly large fans to push air down through the back of the refrigerator. So hopefully that'll be enough to get some of the heat out of this technology cabinet. We've also braced it with a 3/4 inch piece of plywood to sort of rest against the back of the refrigerator, so that it, it has some it's secure somewhat with if it bounces up in the back. And so we've also got a hole here for wires that need to come down and then up into the technology cabinet. So we're going to install this, and then we'll actually get to working on putting things in the technology cabinet. So they've been kind of on the ground and have we've had to work around them quite a bit and pulled, wires and things like that. So it'll be nice to get them up on a shelf and start trimming back some of the cables to get everything nice and neat. So that's what we'll be working on next. We're going to go ahead and try to install this. Should I go ahead and do the brace too?
Sure. Okay, so we got the shelf installed that goes over the refrigerator, and we've been working on space planning. You can see we've got a mess up here. I mean, so many wires. This is ridiculous, and we cannot wait to get this all tidied up. A lot of these cords are going to be able to be cut because we left everything long in the very beginning, just because we didn't know where everything was going to go. So some of these will be able to be cut down. So we've been working on space planning. A lot of things are going in this cabinet. We have this is like the little monitor for our REC BMS. We have actuator controls for our solar panels, a converter, a 48 to 12 volt converter. We have our color control. We've got all of our internet stuff. So we've got a router, we've got a booster, we've got jetpacks. We have this little device that attaches to our EMS. What else is going in there? Oh, our tank monitor. We're also gonna have some other stuff in there too, like our camera stuff. We've got, and a little computer. We're gonna put like a little computer thing in there. I don't know. There may be other stuff. I'm not even totally sure of everything, but we've basically been space planning. We made a little drawing of like our wall space. So this cabinet, instead of being a door that opens this way, it's gonna flip up. And so we're gonna do some other upper cabinets that go over the kitchen that are from IKEA. And so we actually already had, these are the hinges that come with IKEA cabinets for the cabinets that flip up like this. And so these are both a hinge and a stay, and they're soft close. So they're big, they take up a lot of space, but we had them already for our other upper cabinets. We had some extras. So we're gonna go ahead and use these. So we had to account for these in our space planning. So, one on each side. They're pretty big. Our fans are going in the back. So that's what we're working on right now. This is the one thing we've attached so far, is our little BMS control, and we're gonna be attaching a lot of things on these side walls, our color control, and our tank monitor. They're actually going to be going on the cabinet front, on the cabinet door, mounted into the door. So we just figured those are the two things that we just kind of want to be able to see and walk by and check on without getting into the cupboard all of the time. So those are actually going to be on the outside of the door, but everything else is going to be in here. So here we go. We're going to start attaching things, doing lots of cable management, and this may take us a while. It's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, but we're working on it.
All right, so it's an exciting day today because we've got a bunch of this stuff in our technology cabinet finally hooked up. So we spent a bunch of time routing the cables and getting it all fixed up, and so we'll kind of do a real brief overview of all the things that we've put in here to sort of facilitate our full-time living in this bus. And so a lot of it has to do with internet. I work as a software engineer, and I will be working remotely, and so we have to have reliable internet, and so a lot of it is antennas and boosters and things like that, as well as some computers and security stuff. Anyway, we'll go through it, and we'll just give you a real brief tour of what this stuff is and what it does and kind of how it all works together. So one of the examples is the Color Control GX, which we've been using for the last 6 months, and it's great. Like, it shows you what's going on and shows you the state of your battery and how your system's doing and how much power you're consuming. But we don't have any historical data because we didn't have internet, and therefore we couldn't hook it up to like the Victron portal. And so now we can. So we've started hooking things up. We've got a few components that we're waiting for in here, and we'll explain those as well. But let's get going with the tour. All right, so starting off, we have in the back, or I'm sorry, we'll go from the top to the bottom. So on the top, we have our Progressive Industries controller for our shore power. And so what this does is it's an EMS, and it will it will make sure that the power, there's no ground faults, that the power is clean, and that it's within a certain set of, so what it tests the power first, and then it lets it all through. So we have that monitor up here. Next, we have our solar actuator control. And so what this allows us to do is with the remote control, we can just push a button and the solar will come out and then go back in. So the solar actuator control then needs 24 volt power. The motors that we opted to use were 24 volt. And so this little guy here converts 48 volts into 24 volts. So we've got a 48 volt line coming all the way in and then feeding this little converter. So here we have this is our battery monitor. And so what this shows is it will show us the state of each individual cell, its resistance, its temperature, its voltage, all that stuff, as well as an overview on how much battery we have left in terms of percent, and it uses a shunt to figure all that stuff out, what our max and min voltages are, how long till we're full or empty, depending on if we're charging or discharging, and then how much power is coming in. So right now we can see we've got 40 amps coming in from solar, which means we forgot to turn the AC off. Anyway, the shore power cord. Anyway, this will be full in about 9 minutes. So towards the back, we have a Wii Boost. And so what that does is it takes any cell that's within range, it'll take any cell signal and then boost it and drive it out through an antenna. And so outside, we've mounted a fairly large antenna on our little ladder outside, and we'll do a cut of what that looks like right here. And so we wired that up and ran the cable all the way in, and then it hooks up to that. And then the other piece of it is this little inside antenna. And so in the back we have a fuse block because a bunch of this stuff runs natively on 12 volts. And the nice thing about that is anything that runs on 12 volts is going to have redundant power in here because we have a cutover switch that will use the starter batteries in case our big battery ever dies. And so we also have our solar wires routed through here. And then on the left hand side we have our PepWave, which is a cellular router. And so the cool thing about that is we're currently parked at our house, and so what'll happen is it will use our house internet to kind of redistribute the internet out here, which sounds really weird since we're in our own driveway, except that we can't get internet in our own driveway because we're in an aluminum bus, and it acts kind of like a Faraday cage, and so signals have a hard time coming in or out. And so even though we're literally in our driveway, we can't access our own Wi-Fi network because of that. And so the funny thing is, we can go across the street and go into the park that's 200 feet away and access our network just fine, but in the bus, like literally right in our driveway, we can't get it. So what this does is it will hook up to an internet source, and so for now it's our Wi-Fi and this little hotspot. So we have a little hotspot right here, and what it'll do is you can set priority, and so you can say, hey, this is the first internet priority, this is the second internet priority, this is the third internet priority, and you can set up profiles and things like that. So for now, we just have it set up so that it'll connect to our Wi-Fi, and if it doesn't see our Wi-Fi, it will connect through this little hotspot. And so what we have is the unlimited 4G plan from Verizon for this guy, and then we'll also be getting an AT&T plan. So these will kind of live right next to each other, and it will be a manual thing to switch them back and forth. They do make more sophisticated PepWave routers that will take SIM cards, and they kind of act as their own modem and things like that. But we just went with this one because we've heard really good reviews on this one, and so we thought this would be more than adequate for what we do. And so the cool thing about all this is now the internet is enabled. So we have internet enabled devices now, like our Color Control GX can now log to the portal, as well as this is our DVR. So this runs all our security cameras throughout the entire bus. So we have 7 cameras on board that kind of monitor our blind spots and things like that. And now, because we have the network, we can set up an iPad up front and use that kind of as a blind spot checker and a backup camera and things like that. And it's all wireless and all really pretty fast. We've tested it, and there's only about half a second of latency on it. So it's for us, that's more than acceptable. So that's the overview of our technology cabinet. We do have a couple of things coming. So one is we have another computer, it's called an Intel NUC, and they're these really small computers, and that will work as sort of one of the brains of the bus to bring things together and to serve media and act as a gateway and things like that. The other thing we have is we're going to put some switches in here, and this will be one of the control centers for the lights outside. So we'll have lights that run down both sides of our bus that we can control from in here, basically. This is a basic overview of our technology cabinet, and we're pretty excited because it actually all works, and it's working the way we thought.
All right, so I know that was just a real brief overview of the components that we have in here. Later down the road, one is going to do more videos, like a specific video that just kind of walks through start to finish our battery and solar and all the components that go with it. We've done individual videos along the way. I mean, lots of videos on our battery build and on installing all the different components, but down the road when we've been traveling probably a little bit and all of that, he'll kind of do one video start to finish. What are all the components? How does everything work together? And he'll do the same thing again with all of our internet components and how they all work together and how it's working for us on the road. For now, I mean, this was all just about getting the pieces and parts installed and up and running. So for now, we're done with the technology cabinet. A couple more pieces to add, but that's it for now. And we're gonna move on to getting our refrigerator installed in this cabinet space below.